Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
What's up? Welcome into the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Dougherty, as it is a Monday here at the GSMC Podcast Network, and we'll be talking all of your baseball news from the past weekend and looking at some of the games coming up this week. To start off the show, first segment, we're going to be talking about some of the games that went on this weekend and some of the performances we had. Second segment, we're going to be talking about Shohei Ohtani some more, maybe a little bit about the upcoming Red Sox and Yankees series, and then also looking at some of the more stories with Bryce Harper coming up with his big performances over this last week or so, looking like he's definitely stepping it up in his free agency. You're looking for that big contract coming up. And then in the last segment, we'll probably be highlighting some more of the upcoming definitely some of the upcoming series coming up this week. There's a lot of stuff, and we had a lot of stuff obviously to talk about that happened this weekend. We had Shohei Ohtani pitch yesterday on Sunday, and he pitched quite beautifully. I mean, it was his second start against the A's in as many starts, second major league start, and he did something that you don't really see rookies do that often, especially when a team is seeing him for the second time. You could say if it's just a new pitcher, I've been talking about before, that the pitchers can have a tendency to be have a flash in the pan to begin with, because they're definitely foreign to these hitters, where they haven't been able to pick them up, haven't been able to see them, versus a pitcher can go watch a film and find holes in hitter swings, or just use their nasty stuff to fool hitters, get pitchers that are in the zone, drop out of the zone. I mean, Ohtani's definitely got at least two or three pitches. His fastball even has some movement, but he's got that split finger and that slider that both look like they're just going right in the zone and dip right out of there, making them virtually unhittable. But he's facing the A's for the second time, and he was carrying a perfect game through 6 innings. I mean, that's something to say. I mean, he made it was his opening, or not his opening day, his debut in Anaheim at Angel Stadium in those home whites for the Angels, and he only allowed one hit through 7 innings of work. It was a Marcus Semien single that broke up his perfect game and struck out 12 of these A's hitters. I mean, these are major league hitters. The A's, I mean, as I know, all these guys that are trying to put Ohtani down, saying he's going to be a bust and such, they're probably all not talking right now, because he's definitely not looking like a bust. If he's not meeting expectations, he's exceeding expectations, because now he's faced the team for the second time in a week, and he shut them down. I mean, he shut them down absolutely. You could say he even shut them down in the first start, allowing just that home run to Chapman. So I think this guy's for real. I mean, he's for real. We can continue talking about his pitching. We'll get over to his hitting in just a second, but he's for real. He's had 2 major league starts. He's 2-0, 13 innings pitched, 4 hits allowed, 3 runs, 2 walks, 18 strikeouts. I mean, that's 12.446 strikeouts per 9 innings. So that's Cy Young numbers right there, friends. That's Cy Young numbers right there. So I mean, he's definitely having a good start out of the gates. I mean, and then again, facing a team for the second time, he's gonna be facing all the next. I'm sure in his next starts, he's not gonna be facing the A's again. He'll be facing a team that's never seen him before. I mean, they'll have video on him, but this guy is he's cruising at 96. He could top out at 100 miles an hour or plus 100 miles an hour with his fastball. He's got an 89 mile an hour splitter that just absolutely drops off the table. I mean, you could watch the highlights from Sunday afternoon in Anaheim, that he was throwing these splitters that were starting at the hips or hip high of these A's hitter and going in the dirt. I mean, they were just absolutely dirty pitches. He's got a very nice, fluid, repeatable motion, and he just comes right over the top, and he's a big guy, obviously, so he gets nice leverage. And you can see he's showing some emotion on the field, too. He is getting some of those strikeouts, getting out of the inning after when he was after he had that perfect game broken up. He finished that 7th inning, had a couple runners on base, and got a strikeout to finish the inning. He showed some emotion. He definitely was fired up. And that's just the half of it. Obviously, we've been talking about the fact that he's a two-way player. He's a guy who's going to not only be on the mound, but he's going to be in the batter's box swinging it. And boy, did we see that this week. Leading up to his second start, he started on 2 Sundays now. So he started last Sunday and then yesterday. So he's hitting too, friends. He's hitting. He's got 3 home runs. He's got more home runs than the Marlins. And he's got more home runs than Aaron Judge, mind you. So, I mean, not only did he take somebody deep his first at bat, he took Corey Kluber first game. He took Corey Kluber deep in their next game against the Indians, and then he hit another home run against the A's. I believe it was on Thursday or Friday night. He hit another home run, so he's got 2 home runs now in Anaheim, or actually, well, all three of his home runs are in Anaheim, which is just great because you're making that home crowd get crazy. I mean, he's going to be a ticket seller. That's a big stadium there in Anaheim, and the Angels. We've talked about it all. We talked about it before. I feel like they've kind of they've wasted one of the best gifts and one of the best late first round finds we've seen in a long, long time. I mean, Bryce Harper was picked first overall. Mike Trout was not picked first overall. He was not. He was picked, I believe, 16th or 17th in the draft, passed up by the likes of I believe the Yankees passed him up. It was actually interesting seeing some of these stats from Mike Trout. He was a compensation pick for the Yankees signing Mark Teixeira from the Angels, so the Angels got that pick. Imagine if the Yankees had Mike Trout. But no, I'm saying that the Angels have had this lull of doing really nothing ever since they made to the World Series in 2002, or won the World Series in 2002. They have Mike Trout, and they've had him for a few years, and he even takes a hometown kind of deal in his second contract, and they haven't been able to do anything with him because they haven't been able to get the pitching. So now they have Ohtani. They have not only a pitcher that's going to strengthen their rotation, they have a hitter who's going to come in and give Albert Pujols some rest. He's going to give whether they're going to rotate some DHs out of there or put Pujols in the field. But this guy's the real deal, and it's going to be interesting to see how he continues on and how Mike Scioscia is going to use him. He did play it looks like he played in back-to-back games on Wednesday and Thursday, and then did not play until he pitched. So they're going to look like they're going to give him 2 days off before he starts. So he's going to DH all the way up until maybe the 2 days before he starts, which is probably about right. I mean, you need about, I don't know, we'll probably see throughout the whole rest of the season how he's going to transpire when it comes to the timing of his outings, and it comes to the timing of his when he's going to be DHing. But he's hitting down in the order, so it really means no protection. I think he's been hitting like 8th in the order. We'll probably see him be moved up eventually, because he did go 3 for 4 in the second game against the Indians, where he hit that home run, and then the next game I believe he only played about 6 or 7 innings, hitting the second home run because they were getting him ready for his start. Because now you got to be. Like I've been talking about. It's foreign. It's not normal. We haven't seen this since Babe Ruth. The fact that he is not only a pitcher, he is a hitter. He's not only a hitter, he is a pitcher, and he's a darn good one. Because I mean, if you go watch those strikeouts. Go watch those strikeouts. Go watch the highlight reel. Just watch those Ks. Watch the movement on his pitches. It is absolutely ridiculous. He commands all 3 of them. He can throw them all for strikes, and he can also throw them all where they start in the strike zone and run out of the strike zone. Because when you're a major league pitcher and you have a count, you're up in the count. The most devastating pitch is when you have something. These hitters are in protect mode, especially when you can throw 100 miles an hour. If you're Ohtani, these hitters are in protect mode. They obviously don't want to strike out. And you can throw a pitch that starts in the zone and then just dies right out of it a second or a split second later, not even, because that's how quick pitches come down the 60 feet 6 inches. But they're going to swing. They have to swing because they're down. They have 2 strikes. They have to protect, and then when they see a pitch that's going to look like it's coming to be a strike, especially like a slider, which looks like a fastball out of his hand, I mean, he's got all of his pitches kind of come out the same way. They come out, he's got a split, a slider, and a fastball. So it all comes out of his hand the same exact way. These hitters are reading it fastball. Oh, I got to get ready, got to swing early because he throws hard. Bye-bye. The pitch is gone. It's gone. It's in the dirt. You look foolish. You look silly. It's in the dirt. It's in the other batter's box. You're waving at pitches that you have no chance of hitting because it's just that's the kind of movement, that's the kind of pitching he's able to put on display, and it's absolutely incredible because he's now here in the United States in the major leagues, and he's the biggest story right now, not only because of the fact that he has been performing so well, but because he's been doing it on both platforms, whether it's hitting or pitching. I mean, that's the thing also is that this season is long. Another thing we talked about, this is a long season when it comes to Major League Baseball. And I know it's been a week or two. It's been 2 weeks, barely. And he's had 2 starts. I mean, this is going to be interesting how they play it with these off days. I mean, eventually you're going to get to stretches where you're going to play 10, 12 games in a row without an off day. And I don't know if they've gone with the 6-man rotation yet with the off days. I think they've only had to run 5 because that's how you can do it. You can kind of treat that off day as your 6th man in the rotation. Like I know the Giants and the Dodgers have run a 4-man rotation for a little bit here due to injuries and just different stuff with off days where you don't need to even worry about that 5th guy. The Angels, how they're going to run him out, obviously they gave him a full 6 days off in between. So actually he pitched on the 7th day. He pitched every Sunday, then Sunday again. So we'll see if they continue doing that and if they continue using that, using him as a DH up until 2 days before his starts, whether they'll just go with Pujols or somebody else in that DH role. But it is going to be pretty cool seeing that as he goes forward, and if he's going to still make those headlines and be the star that he has been billed to be. And obviously he's been living up to it and exceeding the hype. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. He's not only living up to the hype, he is exceeding that hype. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. If you could look at his line. Just look at his line from his hitting line. He's had 19 plate appearances. He scored 4 runs. He's got 7 hits. He's so 7 for, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. He's hitting 389. I mean, he's got the sweet swing too. I mean, look at this. You look at his highlights. Go watch his highlights. I tell you, go watch the highlights. Go watch the highlights because this guy will absolutely just astonish you because you won't think it's the same guy. I mean, we haven't seen this before. I don't know if it's normal over there in Japan when they have guys that are pitchers and hitters. I know it's very, very much where it's a team aspect over there in Japan. It's not about big stars. He is the big star. He's the guy that people come out for. I mean, he's the guy. 23 years old. He's a big dude, 6'4", and absolutely has the tools to become a star here in the major leagues. And whether he can sustain the ability to hit and pitch, it's just a lot of work. There's a reason why I think we don't see it is because of the fact that it's so demanding and to master your craft in different ways. Hitting and pitching are night and day. It's ridiculous. Hitting and pitching are night and day. Hitting is very much more rhythm based. You can get in slumps. Obviously, pitching you can get in slumps too, but you can always come back. You trust your stuff. You trust you can get in the bullpen and stuff like that. Hitting, you can take as many hits. You can take as many hacks as you want in the cage. You can hit off the tee. You can do all this different stuff. There's a lot of different philosophies to hitting. When it comes to pitching, you got to throw strikes, and you got to be able to rely on your defense. Kind of can go either way. It's a lot more team aspected when it comes to pitching. Obviously, hitting, it's just you up there. It's just you at the plate. You make contact or you don't make contact. You strike out, you don't strike out. You can hit a line drive screamer at somebody. They'll catch it. It counts as the same thing as you hitting a mile-high pop-up and somebody catching it or even striking out. It doesn't matter. You can hit a seeing-eye ground ball that just sneaks through the the infield. Seeing-eye ground ball sneaks through the infield, or you can hit a line drive base hit right at the center field that bounces right in front of them. It's not going to look different than the box score. Pitching is much more of a craft. You're out there all game. You're controlling the pace of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can deal with the disparity of both of those tools that he's gotten. I mean, has them all. He's going to have to be careful on the base paths. That's where we see a lot of pitchers. I can't count how many times we've seen pitchers who, especially in the American League, obviously he's going to be a little more. He's not going to be in that category. I would put him because he's hitting a lot more, and he's probably much more limber and stretched out and can run just as well. I mean, we saw him hit a ground ball at second base and sprint down first base and almost beat it out. But, I mean, you don't see guys do that pretty much at all anymore because they know they're going to be pretty much thrown out. It's a very high percentage play. But he's just got to be careful, make sure he stays healthy, make sure he can stay on that schedule that Mike Scioscia just laid out for him. And I don't see him regressing at all anytime soon, especially on the mound. His stuff is just too good to stop being good, because when it comes to hitting, people can find holes in his swing. You can look at film. I've watched the video of his home runs. Those pitches were right over the plate. The pitch he hit off Kluber. It was off the outer. I was on the outer half, but he went right to center field with it. Took it well. If you can get him a little more, crowd him to the plate a little bit. If I was going to think about a way to attack him as a pitcher when he's hitting, I would crowd him a little more, try and test those hands, crowd him in the zone, maybe brush him off the box a little bit, because if you let him extend, he's got those long arms, he's a big guy. If you let him get his arms extended, you leave a pitch over the middle of the plate, he's not going to miss it. He's going to hit it over that center field wall all day long. That's what he's done twice already in Anaheim, and he can even go get it. His third home run, I believe, was like more down and away, and he went and got it and put it up in the rock pile over there in Anaheim. So it's just going to be interesting. I don't see him regressing at all in pitching. He's just got too much nasty stuff. But when it comes to hitting, the pitchers, I think, will adjust throughout the season, and he might regress a little bit. And also the fact that he's not hitting every day and not getting that rhythm that you need when you're a hitter. You need to get those at bats. It's really tough coming off the. It's really, really tough coming off the bench if you're a hitter. So, I mean, you got to be able to get those hacks in, live hacks. I mean, you can't really simulate major league pitching in practice or in the batting cage at all. So that's going to wrap it up for our first segment. We talked about a lot about Shohei Ohtani. In the next segment, we're going to recap this weekend's games and talk about some of the different stuff that happened. I know we went over a lot of the different pitching matchups and some of the big series that were going on. We had a Dodgers-Giants series. We had a Mets-Nationals series to talk about, and we're going to do that when we come back. All right.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. In the first segment, we just talked about Shohei Ohtani pretty much the whole time. He is worth talking about for a whole segment. I mean, come on, guys. He's been a pretty much a showstopper this first week of the season. We have seen a lot of him all over the ESPN shows, all over the MLB Network shows. We've seen all over social media. I mean, he's a pretty polarizing guy. I mean, he's only pitched and hit. And pitched well and hit well. I mean, you can't ask the guy much more. First guy since, I think, 1915, or a guy named Babe Ruth, I believe, or maybe not even Babe Ruth, who won his first two starts, and then also hit 3 home runs. So, I mean, you gotta like it. You gotta like what you're gonna see. All right, so we're gonna go over some of the stats and scores from this past weekend. I did leave you on Friday morning, so let's go to Friday first. We had a couple rainouts, or maybe one rainout, a very rare rainout in San Francisco, I know. The Giants and Dodgers had to have their game postponed and pushed back to, I think they're going to play in late August when the Dodgers come back to AT&T Park. So they're going to do a doubleheader on the 28th, I believe, of August. So on Friday, we had a couple good. I'm not going to go over all of the scores. I mean, there's a lot of different games going on here, but some of the matchups that I wanted to talk about. We did have a rare upset. I mean, the Padres beat the Astros. I don't know how Lance McCullers did. I like Lance McCullers, but they had the Padres can get some interesting starts from these guys they throw out there. They had Luis Perdomo go out, and he stymied that vaunted Astros roster. I mean, outdueled McCullers. He went 4 hits, allowed 1 run, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks for Perdomo, got the win. McCullers in the loss went 5, allowed 7 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. So he did get that strikeout number over 5 innings, but the Astros were not able really to do much with the bats. So the Padres got the win there. A big blowout in Pittsburgh, as the Pirates were that team in the offseason. Pirates fans, don't be worried anymore, it looks like, or at least to start out the season. You guys did kind of a fire sale over this offseason. You gave away you didn't give away McCutchen, but you traded McCutchen to the Giants. You either traded, or Garrett Cole signed with the Astros, and a couple other guys. You kind of just going with the new school analytics with your young guys, along with the old school manager and Clint Hurdle, and look at that, you guys are 6-1. I mean, you did open the season with the Tigers, who are probably going to find themselves in the cellar for most of the season, and then also you kind of just got the Reds start off the weekend. To start this weekend, you guys are kind of starting off the season with a little bit of I wouldn't call them cupcakes. I wouldn't say they're not, because they're major league teams, but they're definitely not your contenders. So we'll see how they fare against some more vaunted opponents who are going to just do a little bit better. But yeah, they're definitely off to the best start in a few decades. This is the best start since 1960 or 1976. So I mean, it's definitely an interesting lineup to look at when you're the Pirates. You still got Marte in there. You still got Gregory Polanco. They scored 14 runs against Cincinnati. So I mean, you can't be afraid. You can't be mad with that. I mean, I like the fact they got that young Bell kid over at first base. He's Josh Bell, who was in the running for Rookie of the Year last year. Obviously Cody Bellinger kind of ruined that one for him. He ran away with that. Cody Bellinger, got the Rookie of the Year last year. But no, you got to look at they got a nice little lineup. They signed Corey Dickerson, who was released by the Rockies. Obviously, they got a nice stalwart catcher for Francisco Cervelli, and then I like Jordy Mercer at shortstop. So you got to be happy if you're the Pirates. I mean, they're definitely looking like they could maybe make it interesting in the Central. You got to deal with the Cubs, and you got to deal with a Brewers team that did a lot this offseason to make themselves more viable in that Central Division. So they've got that win there. Pirates did on Friday. Other than that, we can look at over at Atlanta, who is another team that was kind of not thought to do that much. They've had a hot start, 5-2, start off the season. You can't worry about that. Can't say much about that badly, because I mean, you got to like the fact that they're coming out strong. I mean, they got some of their veterans, they got some of their young guys. I mean, obviously you got to like the fact that Dansby Swanson was a home run away from a cycle this weekend. Nick Markakis, say that 5 times fast. Markakis is he started off well, got a big walk-off home run, I think, on opening day, way back last week, so long ago. And then, obviously, they have the stalwart that's been their kind of career brave in Freddie Freeman, that's always been a solid first baseman for them, and they like him. Another game we had going, the Yankees in Baltimore played 14, and the Yankees lost that one after not a walk-off because they were in New York, but a big grand slam in the 14th inning by Pedro Alvarez that kind of sealed that one sealed the fate for the Yankees in that one, as they were beaten by the Baltimore Orioles in 14 innings on Friday. All right, on Saturday we had the renewal, as the Giants and Dodgers were actually able to play in San Francisco. I think it was the first rainout in San Francisco in like 5 years. The Giants have had a whopping 5 rainouts, I think, in their existence at AT&T Park. This was their 6th one on Friday, as it was pouring pretty much all day in San Francisco. Giants, speaking of 14-inning games, like I talked about just a second ago with the Yankees and Orioles, they played a 14-inning game on Saturday night with the Dodgers. That game actually started at like 3 o'clock, so they didn't play too deep into the night. But that game was a very interesting one, as they were tied 4-4 going all the way through the extra innings, and the Dodgers scored one in the top of the 14th inning, only to be beaten in the bottom half by an Andrew McCutchen walk-off 3-run homer. That definitely got all the Giants fans riled up. That's the second time, I believe, this season already the Dodgers have gone to extra innings, taking the lead in the top half of an inning in extra innings, and then giving up a home run in the bottom half of the inning to lose the game. I think they did it to the last week to the Diamondbacks when it was, I think, Owings who hit a home run off of Kenley Jansen in the bottom half of I think it was either the 12th or the 13th inning that the Dodgers lost that one. So the Dodgers, they're I think they're 3-6 now on the season. They're definitely looking like they have had they started off, that was their worst start. I think the 2-6 was the worst start they've had in a few years, in definitely a few years. But the Dodgers definitely, they got the roster talent, they got the pitching to be able to come back. I'm not really worried about the Dodgers. It's gonna be interesting to see how they play the Giants a lot. They got the win on Sunday, I believe. Beg your pardon. On Sunday, they did get the win over the Giants. Another extra inning game, only went 10 though. One extra inning though. Got the win there. So they split a abbreviated 2-game series. Now they're going to play another 4-gamer at the end of this month back in San Francisco. But I wouldn't worry about the Dodgers too much. They got the lineup. They got the bats who just haven't been able to hit, and they obviously still have Clayton Kershaw and all those other lefties in their pitching rotation. It's going to be, it'll be pretty nice for them going through. But definitely with the Giants, if you're a Giants fan, you got to like the fact that you're sticking with this. I mean, going into the season, it was a lot of doom and gloom due to the injuries of your top two, or not top, well, one of your top two of your top 3 pitchers. You can't knock Johnny Cueto. He's been pitching pretty darn well. But no, definitely doom and gloom when it comes to the Bumgarner and Samardzija injuries. But you got to like the fact that you can come out of your first 3 games with the Dodgers at 3-3, and then obviously you split that 2-game series with the Mariners. So you're looking at sitting at 4-4 after the second weekend of play here on the 2018 season. All right, so looking at the rest of the games here on Saturday, we had my big matchups. Where's my Arizona and Cardinals matchup? Yeah, Michael Wacha went against Zach Greinke on Saturday. The Cardinals got the win there. Wacha to get the win for St. Louis. Greinke set with the loss. I mean, it was a tight game all the way through. These teams are looking like they're both going to be pretty much contenders. Cardinals had a big third inning scoring 4 off Greinke that pretty much sealed the win for them. They never looked back after that. And Wacha scattered a few hits, only allowed, I believe, 2 runs on 4 hits through 5, struck out 5, but also walked 5. So that's the one thing for Michael Wacha. He can get some wildness going when he on his start. Sometimes when he's locating, he's pretty nasty with that changeup fastball combination. Nice little slider, tight slider too. But I mean, when he gets wild is when he gets in issues. But it looks like he was able to get some ground balls, and they did turn a double play to get him out of an inning. And he was able to pick up the win, a little 5-and-dive action right there. You're seeing that more and more now. We saw it on Sunday with even with Clayton Kershaw. A lot of pitchers being pulled early in games. I talked about it, I think, at the beginning of when I first started off doing the baseball podcast, the fact that we're going to be seeing a lot of starters getting pulled, and we're relying on these bullpens. I mean, talked about the Yankees with their bullpen, and these starters only need to go 5-6 innings, and you can start going boom, 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 7, 8, 9, getting these guys one inning. And we used to see these lefties that were only going to face one guy. Now we got lefties that can face righties as well as lefties. There's no more left-handed one guy only or one hitter only guys. We got guys going full innings now. Sometimes we got guys going innings in the third, 2 innings. We saw in the game on Saturday, actually, a big blowout win. I believe it was on Saturday. We had the Phillies and the Marlins go at it, and the Phillies beat them 20-1. I wouldn't call that a close game. We call that a blowout for sure. Phillies hit 2 grand slams in that game, but if you guys look up baseball rules, you could find out that a save, to qualify for a save, you either get in a game that is 3 runs or closer, you get the last out in the 9th inning, you earn a save. The other way to earn a save, no matter the score, is if you pitch the last 3 innings. If you get the last 9 outs in the game for the team that wins, you are given a save, no matter the score. So kudos to Mr. Thompson, who was able to get those last 3 innings. Thank you for the 3 innings of service for the Phillies. Unfortunately, they did send him right down to the minors to make room for Jake Arrieta, who we'll get to probably in the next segment. But Jake Thompson pitched 3 innings on Saturday night in a 20-1 victory for the Phillies and got the save. Velasquez got the win. He looked pretty good. Went 6 innings, allowed 4 runs or 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. For the Marlins, I'm not even going to go through their pitching stats as it wasn't pretty. The Phillies did score about 20 runs. And were they all earned? Oh, yeah, they were all earned. All earned runs. Lots of home runs for the Phillies, too. Like I said, 2 grand slams and a couple 2-run home runs, I believe, or a solo shot. A 3-run homer, a solo shot, and 2 grand slams. That's how you score 20 runs right there, friends. All right. So we kind of went over a little bit. The Mets and Nationals series, I'll get into I'll talk about that just as we finish up this segment. That it lived up to its hype. It was pretty cool. We did have an extra inning game on Sunday Night Baseball. The Mets, I believe, pulled that one out. But we didn't really have the big matchups. We had both of them kind of had their back end of the rotation going on over the weekend. We didn't have a Harvey. I mean, we did have a Harvey, I believe, actually on Friday, but we didn't have a Syndergaard or a DeGrom or a Scherzer or a Strasburg quite yet. The Mets, they didn't sweep him. I don't think they didn't sweep him. So they didn't. Did they even play on Friday? They had one of those weird Friday day. Oh yeah, they had the Friday day off, and then they played Saturday, Sunday. So we talked about that before. I think it was some sort of thing with the whether they wanted to give that extra day off just in case people had their home opener rained out, because I know we had some home openers on Thursday. Yeah, we did have the Thursday game. We talked about that on the Friday podcast, the DeGrom and Strasburg game. But over the weekend, it was the 3 and 4 starters for both teams. So we had Matt Harvey go on Saturday. He pitched all right. He's, like I said, he needs to sit right in that third spot, take some of the spotlight off of him. Mets got the win, though. Harvey did get a no decision. Actually, no, they put Steven Matz out there. I thought Harvey was their third starter. They put Steven Matz out there. He went 5, allowed 3 hits on 1 run on 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts against Gio Gonzalez, who also pitched pretty well. Went 5 1/3, 1 run on 6 hits, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. So, and the Mets got the win in that one, they scored 2 in the 7th inning, so they got that win. And then I believe they won on Thursday too. So the Mets, did they sweep the Nationals in this series? That'd be a big sweep there in Washington for the Mets. You gotta like the Mets coming out of this series. If you're a fan up there, yeah, they got the win in extra innings on Sunday. Seth Lugo got the win there on a final in 12 innings in our nation's capital. So the Mets, yeah, they swept the Nationals in D.C., getting all 3 wins the Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday games. They won all 3 of those. So you gotta like your chances if you're a Mets fan. I mean, they got that front end of the rotation working. They got those young bats going. So I mean, you had Adrian Gonzalez hit a grand slam last night. The guy you got from the Dodgers, old Adrian Gonzalez, who hasn't seen he's seen the field in seemingly years. I mean, he was the guy who left the World Series last year and started going and starting his vacation early. Didn't even stick with the team last year when the Dodgers were in the World Series. So it's interesting to see that him do pretty well in the Big Apple. So next segment, we're talking about a little bit about Bryce Harper. We're going to talk about some Yankees. So it's just some stuff that's going on in the East Coast. Maybe talk more about the West Coast sometimes. We did talk about Ohtani in the first one, so we have to go coast to coast in this show because baseball is definitely going on all around our nation, and we'll be right back with that.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. In the first two segments, we talked about Shohei Ohtani. We talked about what went on this past weekend in the Major League Baseball. In this segment, we're going to talk about some of our stars, our favorite stars we like, and how their first full week in Major League Baseball went down. I know we have a leader in the clubhouse, well, not in the clubhouse, but right now in home runs in Major League Baseball. It is none only than Bryce Harper with 6 home runs, and we're going to talk about Bryce Harper for a little bit in the segment. He's definitely a guy you could love and hate. You remember he was the guy who started on Sports Illustrated as an 18-year-old, a guy who left high school early to go to a junior college to become eligible to be drafted, a guy who started a guy who was number 1 pick overall, a guy who barely played any minor league baseball and was implanted into the Major League field, or Major League the big show, on a very young age, and definitely has not shied away from the limelight or the spotlight whatsoever. And I mean, he's been kind of growing up that way anyways. So if you're Bryce Harper, you probably are used to it. But you were used to it by the time you were a rookie. Definitely, you've been having reporters and cameras following you and scouts following you since you were 15, 16 years old, because you were hitting monster home runs, even at that age. But this is the season where he needs to really step up. He obviously has his MVP under his belt, had a little regression last year, and he's been on the Nationals team that just really hasn't been able to get over the hump. You watch him in the playoffs. He's done well in the playoffs, but his team hasn't really been able to back him up where he's been able to get it past that NLDS series. Because this Nationals team, you always think they can go far. You always think that they can kind of get into the World Series and make it interesting. We have the Dodgers do it. We have the Giants do it. We have the Cubs do it. But the Nationals just can't seem to get out of their own way. Whether it's giving up a home run or, giving up runs late to the Cardinals in a Game 5 in NLDS, whether it's losing a 18-inning game to the Giants, whether it's getting, I think they get swept or only won one game to the Cubs or the Dodgers, whoever they play, because they've had times where they've been the number 1 team coming out of. They've had the best season. They've been the number 1 seed coming out of with the Eastern Division crown, and been able to face the lowest team, or whatever the wild card team was that season at home to start off their series. So, I don't think we can put the blame squarely on Bryce Harper, but he's definitely starting to amp it up already this year, as he is looking for that big contract coming in the offseason, as he's going to be a free agent, and whether he's going to stay in Washington, whether he's going to go to the Cubs, go to the Giants, go to the Dodgers, go to the American League. We don't know that, because we've had reports saying that he wants $400 million. We've had reports saying that he wants, upwards of 10 years. You got to think about it. The guy still is, 25 years old? 24 years old. If you're thinking about it, a 10-year contract wouldn't be terrible. I know Giancarlo Stanton got 10 years, 300 and something million, and now he's obviously getting paid by the Yankees because the Marlins got that contract off their books in a hurry. You can't blame them. Obviously, Derek Jeter starting to coming in as a new owner, who didn't want to get saddled with that contract. But Bryce Harper, 4 home runs so far, looking like he's going to be having another outbreak year. I don't know if he's going to be in the running for MVP, but he usually is always in that conversation. Long season coming ahead of us. He's in his age 25 season. And definitely a guy who probably would be worth. I mean, I don't know, $400 million is a lot of money. But when you're thinking about it, he's a guy he's a position player. He plays every day, and you can look over at Clayton Kershaw and see that he got $25 million a year, or what was it, $35 million a year, to be a pitcher who only plays every 5 days. And I mean, that's upward. I mean, 30 starts in a season is great. 200 innings is great. So I mean, yeah, he signed a 7-year, $215 million contract with the Dodgers, and that's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money for a pitcher. For a hitter, at least, I mean, you're getting him every single day. He's going to score runs for your team. I know Kershaw is almost an automatic win for his team. He's yet to get a win this season, mind you, actually. He's 0-2 still. He was saddled with a no decision on Sunday. The Dodgers did win that game in 10 innings. However, when you have Bryce Harper, he can win you 2, 3, 4 games in a row, whether it's home runs, timely hitting in late in the game, starting off the game with a big home run, putting a team in the hole. I mean, it's just different when you have obviously a stopper like Kershaw. If you're going bad or something like that, hitters get in slumps. Kershaw doesn't really get in slumps, but I mean, we're comparing a hitter and a pitcher here, guys. We have comparing a guy that's hitting every single day in the lineup every single day, playing average to above average defense in the outfield. He's a fast guy, can be a guy on the base pass that can put up some numbers, obviously, also in the stolen base category, versus a pitcher who only is pitching once or twice a week. So $400 million, you could say that's a lot of money because it is a lot of money. I have no problem with that. But that's the market these days in baseball for a guy like Harper. I don't know if he's going to get it after we saw what happened this offseason regarding free agents and how teams were so skittish with giving big contracts. They definitely were not in any hurry when it came, especially Jake Arrieta and to J.D. Martinez, who had to kind of sit and wait and just either take a pay cut or not get exactly what they wanted. I think Arrieta's contract still wasn't too bad. I mean, coming off the season he had, that was about right, I think, for him. Go with the Phillies. And then also, I think Martinez was looking more for that $250 when he got for the years he got versus $217. I believe he got like a 4-year, $217 million contract, which is nothing to shy away at. I mean, you can't be wary of that. I mean, that's good money right there for a guy who's not even close to the name as Bryce Harper. I mean, dude, you had like 2 good seasons. So I mean, Bryce Harper has a winner MVP. He's been a perennial all-star, and he's definitely the face of that franchise, if not the face of Major League Baseball, along with Mike Trout in the American League. So he's worth it. I think you see teams who are kind of setting up for that courtship of Bryce Harper, whether he wants to leave the East Coast, wants to get out of that cold weather in DC, wants to come over to California, whether he wants to go to Chicago, maybe go up the road to New York. We don't know where he wants to go. He's definitely held that close to the vest. We don't really know either how the Nationals are going to approach him come this offseason. They've always been kind of standoffish. Rizzo, their GM, has kind of been he definitely handles free agency very quietly and very calmly, with no media presence and kind of keeping that all close to the vest until stuff goes down. But that's just the Nationals for you. Can't really seem to get out of their own way. All right, so enough about Harper. He's playing well. He's putting up numbers, and he's looking for that contract as he's sitting at 6 home runs right now in the first week or week and a half of the season, which is, I mean, that's a good number. That's a good number, definitely on pace. If you think about it, that's probably, 6 weeks, 6.5, a week and a half. 162 games. They played 8 games, 162. That's a pretty good pace right there, sitting at 6 home runs. So let's see if we can keep that one up and keep it going for the Nationals, and maybe get into that conversation for MVP and push to the playoffs for the Nationals. But long way off, and I'm just excited to see what he's going to be going for this offseason, and see if my undisclosed favorite team will make an offer for him coming up in this offseason. That'll be a nice little addition for that undisclosed team. Okay, continuing on, we have some news for Giancarlo Stanton. Obviously, he struck out. He hit his first, or he hit his first home run as a Yankee in his first about 2 home runs in that first game. We talked about that last week, and then he has had a game where he struck out 5 times. Then he hit his first home run as a Yankee again. I mean, in the pinstripes in the Bronx, and the fans were booing him the day before or cheering him the next day. That's just New York fans. I don't know what it is, what the deal is up there. I mean, booing like the first game, dude. Guys, I mean, come on. I get the Philly fans booing Gabe Kapler. That's just Philly. That's Philly for you. I mean, eat your hearts out, guys. I mean, you got your Super Bowl champion. Be happy with that. I mean, I know Gabe Kapler literally just came out of the major leagues. He looks like he's like a little kid out there managing your team. But give the guy a break. Your team is young, and you just won 20-1 over the team that actually will be the worst team in the East. I actually kind of like the Phillies. You got Rhys Hoskins, a guy from California, went to Sac State. He's a good player. So Stan struck out 5 times again this past weekend. I think I've been said it before. The fact that this guy is kind of an all or nothing guy. He's definitely not. We're not going to see him hit for the average he did when he won the MVP last year. We might see him knock a few more balls out of the park because you got little teeny stadium there in the Bronx. But he's definitely waving at some pitches. Looks like he's either pressing or not getting his pitch or not being patient enough. He's definitely getting a little over anxious when it comes to swinging out of his shoes, because definitely that guy, when he swings mighty hard, because that's what you got to do when you're Giancarlo Stanton, when you want to pop a bunch of home runs. So that's my little take on Stanton. We'll see what he does, but he struck out 5 times again. That's just my public service announcements of the day. All right, that'll wrap it up for this segment. We talked about Bryce Harper a lot, and the fact that he is having a great start to the season, looking like he's hopefully can carry that on throughout the rest of the season, as he is in search for that massive record-breaking contract coming this offseason, when he'll be a free agent and maybe even have a ring on his finger when he does that too. So we'll be right back with some outlook for this upcoming week and some matchups. And we got a big Red Sox and Yankees series to talk about. So that'll be taking up probably most of our last segment here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We've had a full-packed show on this Monday. A lot of stuff to talk about that happened over the weekend. We talked about Shohei Ohtani. We talked about some of the matchups that went on, some of our big blowout games, some of the pitching matchups I talked about on Friday, and then also Bryce Harper continuing his tear, and then also the volatility of Giancarlo Stanton. All right, coming up this week, we have an interesting slate of games. Coming up on Tuesday or tomorrow in Boston, we're going to have the first series of the vaunted Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. Red Sox looking really good. They're 8-1 coming into the series. Obviously, they've played some lower packed teams. Obviously, they've got. I think they played both. I think they played the Rays twice, and in 2 series with the Rays, and they played the Marlins. So they played all Florida teams. And those teams have a combined win total of 3. So you can take that for what it's worth. But in the first game on Tuesday, we're going to have the top 2 guys for each team, Luis Severino and Chris Sale. So definitely tune in for that one. That's going to be a barn burner there in Boston, the renewal of this very storied rivalry. Yankees at 5-5. had a tough little series with the Orioles. Looking like the Orioles got him. I think they got him twice in the Bronx, so they're gonna have to bounce back from that going into Boston against a team that just lost, unfortunately, Xander Bogaerts with a injury. He was sliding over into the dugout, I think, to make a catch, and hurt his ankle. It looks like, as he's going to be sidelined for it looks like the foreseeable future. He was kind of being limping off the field a little bit there, and then also CC Sabathia for the Yankees is going to be his second start was cut short to a right hip discomfort, and he's going to be on the DL starting on Saturday. Remember, now it's only a 10-day DL for Major League Baseball. It used to be 15. Now it's 10 days. Started last season. This is the second season now of that. So not the biggest deal. I mean, we'll see. He gets pretty much 2 starts for a pitcher, or this start and the next one. For a pitcher, if you're on the 10-day DL, so we'll see how CC kind of bounced back from that. And then the Bogaerts injury, it was his left ankle, and there hasn't really been a prognosis on that, as the Red Sox are still undergoing tests and be evaluated further. Brock Holt played shortstop for him, so going into that series, they're going to be out. The Red Sox will be without their shortstop, and the Yankees will be without one of their starters going into that series. So on Tuesday, that's the Severino-Smith matchup, or Severino-Sale matchup, that is. On Wednesday, we're going to have I believe it's going to be on ESPN. I think they usually, I mean, ESPN finds every chance to put this Yankees Red Sox rivalry on TV. So I don't think there's going to be any hesitation to do that if they get the Wednesday Night Baseball on ESPN. Who's it going to be for the Red Sox and the Yankees? It's going to be Tanaka versus David Price. That's going to be another good matchup, as these teams have kind of lined up their, well, just either they lined them up or it kind of happened that way, where they're going to be on, not on ESPN quite yet. I think MLB Network will probably have it on Wednesday for Tanaka and David Price. And then the finale on Thursday will be Rick Porcello for the Red Sox. The Yankees have not announced their starter. I think that was the CC start, so they'll have to figure out somebody to go in place of CC Sabathia, as he is on the 10-day DL. And like I said, other matchups to look at for this upcoming week: Braves and Nationals. Another NL East little matchup coming up here. On Tuesday, we'll have Mike Voltynewicz against Steven Strasburg. That'll be an interesting matchup, as the Nationals, after coming off a sweep from the Mets. Mets looking really good. Nationals at 4-5 now. Braves at 6-3. I mean, it's early. I've talked about it in this season. These games, they still matter, though. They all add up at the end of the season, and the Nationals need to look like they have to turn it around, as they'll have another series at home against an NL rivalry division rival. Voltynewicz looked really good in his first couple starts, sitting at that 2.61 ERA. Strasburg, I believe, did take the loss in his last start against the Mets. DeGrom beating him. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Nationals bounce back against the Braves. Marlins are going to be hosting the Mets coming up this week, so the Mets looking like they're going to keep rolling, as they're going to face that pretty weak Marlins team. Jake DeGrom is going to be going tomorrow for the Mets. A AL West matchup coming up. Angels and Rangers will be going this week. Nice little matchup there. Another division matchup in the NL Central. Brewers and Cardinals coming up this week. It's going to be a nice little matchup for them, as the Cardinals had some issues on over this weekend. I want to talk about as we coming closer to the end of our show. If you guys didn't see the highlight, we had an interesting little tussle with it was a Diamondbacks and Cardinals matchup over the weekend. And the Diamondbacks manager Terry Lovello came out after a low strike was called on I can't remember who it was. It was David Peralta or somebody, but a low strike was called, and it looked like Yadier Molina, the catcher for the Cardinals, was either pulling those pitches up back to the strike zone, which I mean is completely fine. You can frame your pitches no matter how you feel fit. If you're the umpire, it's up to the umpire to call it a strike. But it looked like Terry Lavello was coming out to argue the strike call. But I mean, when you're a manager and you come out of the dugout and you argue balls and strikes, it's pretty much an automatic ejection. So he said something that did not sit well with Yadier or Molina, and he got right in the face of Terry Lavello. And I mean, Yadi, we don't know what's going to happen with Yadi. I don't know if he's going to face a suspension, a fine or a suspension. He's definitely been he's a veteran in the major league in this league. I mean, the team, he's a cash cow also for the league, obviously, especially when it comes to the international market. Gets a lot of viewership across South America and everywhere and definitely throughout Central America, all these countries that we've liked having those players come up and play, are talented players. Definitely Molina's been up here, a Puerto Rican native. But definitely a guy who's definitely had some issues in the past with his temper. Got in the face of the opposing manager on another team, had to be held back by the home plate umpire. I mean, whether it was Lavello who said something or Molina just having rabbit ears, it's just interesting to see a catcher react the way he did. But I mean, you can't really put that past Yadier Molina. He's definitely him. I wouldn't call him a hothead, but he's definitely a guy who's not afraid to show off his feelings and get frisky with somebody, because he likes to just rumble sometimes. Whether it was something that Lavello said, like we mentioned, but I can imagine that he just would randomly go after an opposing team's manager. It had to be something that, whether Lavello was accusing him of something, or I mean, the guy was just coming out to argue with balls and strikes with the umpire, and he maybe just said like, "Hey, the catcher's pulling he called him a name or something, pulling the pitches back up into the zone," which he's totally allowed to do. We've talked about that. He can frame the pitches however he wants. I mean, it's not like it's an unwritten rule, which, I mean, baseball has a whole book of unwritten rules, and that's not an unwritten rule. You can do that. I mean, the catcher, it's up to the umpire to figure it out if the catcher is trying to really frame pitches like that, which is, I mean, it's pretty obvious. The umpire can't look down and see the catcher pull the glove up, and he's calling the pitch as it comes across the plate. So I don't know what's going on there. We'll see if he faces a fine. I don't think Major League Baseball is really going to do much with that, because they like to stay away from Yadi. I mean, he's kind of he's one of those untouchables, and he kind of knows that. So yeah, it's interesting to see that. But the Brewers are going to be coming into town to face the Cardinals, and that's going to be another series. We'll see if Yadi can keep it cool this time coming into this series. Out west, we have the Rockies and the Padres in an NL West matchup. Kind of a snoozer there. Anything really with the Padres. No offense to San Diego fans, but your team needs to get something going here. You obviously had one of the worst. Coming from a baseball player myself, that's one of the worst losses. I mean, you have worse losses, ways you can lose. I don't know if you guys saw, but look up the way the Astros and Padres game ended on Saturday night. You had a 0-0, nothing game in the bottom of the 10th inning in Houston. I believe it was Alex Bregman up at the plate. You had Fisher out at second base after he stole second base, and Bregman hits a pop-up. It was a major league pop-up, home run in a Coke bottle for sure. It was a very, very high pop-up, but it was right out in front of the plate, very catchable for the first baseman coming down the line. I'm the first baseman myself. I mean, you see it all the way, come right down the line and make the catch. And Eric Hosmer, either he didn't see it off the bat or didn't pick it up in the air. He was definitely looking for some help. He was looking to see if the catcher was coming out. He took his eye off the ball and overran the ball, and it landed went right over his head and landed in fair territory. The guy at second base came all the way around. There was 2 outs, so he just took off. Came around third, and right as the ball hit the ground, he came across home plate, and the game was over. I mean, you could lose on a bases loaded walk. You could lose on a wild pitch. That's kind of on your pitcher. Those things just happen when your guy's wild. But when you have a pop-up, a hit, a ball in play that had a less than a percentage chance of becoming a hit, according to StatCast, you got to catch those balls. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous if you're sitting there in the Padres, and there's all the pictures of just those 4 guys. I think it was the shortstop, the pitcher, the Hosmer, and the catcher. I mean, the second baseman was in there too, just kind of just looking at the ball on the ground, and Hosmer just with his head down. I mean, that just sums up the the Padres there for you as we talk about them to finish off our show. But just wanted to bring that up. No offense, Padre fans. But that's a tough way to lose if you're from San Diego and you love your Padres. But you got a lot of games to go, and so maybe you can avenge your losses against the Rockies over in Colorado as they start a series over there in Mile High City. So that's what I'm going to talk about. We got Pirates Cubs coming up too as well. We got Ivan Nova and Tyler Chatwin. That's starting today. Some of these series starting today. Some of them starting tomorrow. We do have the Mets and Marlins actually do start today as well. Syndergaard is going to face Urena, the number one starters for each teams. We'll see. I think the Mets in that game right there, friends. Mets looking really good, especially with Noah Syndergaard pitching. So you gotta like that. You gotta like that team. You gotta like the team. You gotta like that matchup. Obviously, coming off a sweep on the road in DC against your number one competitor in that division. So you gotta like that, and then also Dylan Bundy is going to be pitching again. Definitely a guy to watch. If you like watching a young pitcher that throws hard, got good off speed, good slider, watch Dylan Bundy against the Blue Jays today. Ian Happ going for the Blue Jays, but Dylan Bundy for the Orioles looking really good. He's hasn't gotten his first win yet. He's gotten two no decisions, but his ERA is sitting sub-1 through 2 starts. So you gotta like that. I mean, that's the kind of when you got a sub-1 ERA, means you have had 2 good starts. I mean, because ERA is all about innings pitched, and it's about if you give up a bunch of runs in one inning or something like that, it takes a little while to bring that ERA down. But if you start with a good ERA, that means your first 2 starts were really good. He only probably gave a run in his first 2 starts, or maybe 2 if he's sitting at that .69 ERA right there for the Orioles. Gotta like that if you're an Orioles fan. All right. Max Scherzer is going to be going tonight against Julio Teheran. That's a nice little matchup. And then in Cleveland, you got Francisco Liriano and Corey Kluber. So that's what we're looking at today. And then also we have the matchups I was talking about tomorrow as well. So as some of these series are starting today, some teams do have off days today, as that's what we're going to get into. Usually Monday and Thursdays are usually the off days in Major League Baseball, and then we have games, all 15 games going on the other days. So that's what it's going to be. That's a little weirdness going on with this start of the season, but that's pretty much how it's going to be going down the pike here as we continue on our 162 game trek of this Major League Baseball season here in 2018. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for me today on this Monday. It is April 9th, and we have talked a lot about what happened over this past weekend. We talked about Shohei Ohtani. We talked about the Yankees and Giancarlo Stanton. We talked about Bryce Harper. We talked about what happened over the weekend, some weird stuff that happened, some big wins that happened, some interesting ways to lose over this weekend. We talked about the fact that the Mets swept the Nationals at home, and a lot of good stuff, and obviously highlighted some of the upcoming matchups this week coming in Major League Baseball. All right, so I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll be back on Wednesday for another edition. We'll probably be looking at some of these games that I just talked about, and then also some stories, and see if Shohei Ohtani will come up on our radar once again. All right, till then, have a good day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.